Hello, California, and welcome to this week's edition of Your Financial Compass, the show dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio, we have two financial advisors from Bulman Wealth Group, Scott Vallon and Sean McAmoyle. We've got a very important and powerful show for you today. The title of today's show is Plan with the End in Mind. Again, this show is dedicated to helping you successfully navigate to and through your retirement, which means, guys, we've got to talk about some legacy planning today. Scott, Sean, how are you?
Good.
Doing great.
You always ask us, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you. I do look forward to this time with you each and every week. I never know what's going to come out of your mouth, especially you, Scott.
Yeah, well, I'll save it for the meat of the show.
Oh, but no, we do like to have a lot of fun on this show, but today we are going to be talking about a more serious subject. It's one that I think a lot of folks often shy away from. It's never fun to think about the end of our lives, but in all three of our experiences in this industry, we can vouch for the fact that making sure you have a solid plan in place for your estate planning and your legacy planning, it's by far one of the most loving things that you can ever do for folks. And so, especially for your loved ones that you're leaving behind. I know you were saying that you hear this all the time. What is some of the comments you hear from folks as you help them navigate through these important conversations?
Well, I think we all probably grew up, I know I did, where you just didn't talk about money.
Mm-hmm. It was taboo, right?
It was taboo.
Yeah.
Sean also grew up in the 20s. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Yeah. I walked to school uphill both ways.
Both ways, yes. In the snow, right?
Yeah. But we just kind of grew up that way, and I think that's carried on. We passed that tradition on. I don't know if it's really a healthy tradition. Mm-hmm. So we've tried to be very intentional about it because, believe it or not, thinking about your legacy influences and impacts your plan today.
Yes.
And we've made legacy an intentional part of our financial compass. When we meet with new clients, we talk about the 5 points of the financial compass. We talk about income, we talk about taxes, we talk about health care, and we talk about their legacy before we even really start talking about their investment portfolio. Because asking the question, what does this money mean to you? How do you want to pass this on to your heirs or to charity? Some clients want to pass on as much as possible.
Right.
Others just don't want to outlive their money, and if there's anything left over, then they're happy to pass that on to the next generation or to charity. But if we do our job right, our clients don't outlive their money, and they are going to pass something on to the next generation or to a charity, and they can either do it with intention or they can just kind of let it happen.
Right.
And I think it's a huge missed opportunity.
Oh, for sure. And you mentioned how it used to be generationally a little bit more taboo. I think culturally in families, it can be very different. So my parents are both from California, and once they walked through this process with their aging parents and their passing away, and inadvertently some messes were left in their laps, they got really motivated. So I started having them talk to me when I was only 16 years old about what was going to happen when they pass away. And I remember thinking, I don't want to have this conversation, right?
I just got my driver's license.
Right, exactly, literally. But it was so powerful to see that they were intentional about it. Now, I married into a family, a good Southern country farm boy, where not only was it taboo to talk about money, but you also don't want to offend, right? So here, Grandma is 98 years old.
Meemaw.
And we know, know that her time on Earth was coming to an end. And I kept saying, are we going to talk about this? Nope.
Right.
Nope, we're not going to talk about it till she's gone because it's disrespectful, right? So then when she passed away, all of a sudden it was scrambling to figure some stuff out. And so there's got to be a happy medium in there. But I think oftentimes what triggers folks to get serious about this is when you've had to walk through it in your own family. And then all of a sudden you're going, I don't want my kids to have to deal with the same mess that I have now been left with.
Yeah, and they always say not having a plan is still a plan. You've planned to not have a plan. With the old Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree is 30 years ago, next best time is now. It doesn't have to be so taboo, as you said. It doesn't have to be, it's not as scary as you think it is. I think that's what keeps a lot of people from wanting to do it, let alone just the interesting conversations you have to have. setting up a trust isn't as scary and crazy as it might sound. And a lot of times that's where it starts. As Sean said, you have to be intentional. What are the goals? What legacy is such a weighty word. Just like, what do you want your kids and your grandkids to remember you? Not just, oh, he was a great guy or a great gal, but they did this, generational wealth, what have you. But here's the thing, in California, if you own a home and you don't have a trust, you need a trust yesterday. And that's an area that we can offer some guidance with. But sometimes it's just the misconception, oh, I don't need one. I don't have enough money. I have $1 million house, but I don't have any other.
Right, that's a huge misconception.
It's such a misconception, especially in California. Most states, a will does the trick, but here in California, we need a trust if you own property. So finding out, what that is. A lot of times people don't know until they've walked through it. As you said, we've dealt with lots of folks that come in like, oh yeah, I'm dealing with probate now. It's been a pain in the butt. Probate takes a long time, costs a lot of money. It leaves the kids kind of scrambling, and it's so much harder for them. Do you want to leave your kids with a mess when you're not around? And that's another reason to get it. Or maybe you have a trust and you set it up 20 years ago when the kids were in diapers and now they're, married or whatever. Sometimes it needs an update.
Yeah. Oh, so I've got a good story for that real quick. So I mentioned, my husband's family didn't want to talk about this. And so finally, after being a part of the family for over a decade, I was like, let's make sure everything's up to date. So finally, pull out the will for my in-laws, and it still said, it was written in 1984 when my husband was 4 years old. The will still stated what was going to happen to little Charlie if his parents were to pass away prematurely, right? It was okay, time for an update, and we had to add great-grandchildren to the situation. We had to change some things around, and so important to make sure those documents are all reviewed and up to date once you have them done.
It's so true. Getting organized is always the first step, but we've had people say, I've been delaying reaching out to you because I wanted to get organized first. And what we tell people is, we'll help you get organized. Don't feel like you have to have everything figured out before you come talk to us, because we would certainly do that.
Right.
But not only updating your documents, but we found so many clients that have done all the work, set up the will, the trust, had all the documents, but then they didn't ensure that all their assets were in the trust.
Meaning
pointing to the trust.
They were
named as a beneficiary.
The titles were, they still have some accounts in single name or joint name instead of in the name of their trust. And it only takes $180,000 of assets that are outside of the trust to trigger probate, which is a long, lengthy, expensive process. So you could have done all the work to have the right trust and the documents set up, but if it's not funded, if it's not updated, there can be a lot of unintended consequences.
No, for sure. And you mentioned probate. Not only does it take significant time delays, it's very costly. It's also a matter of public record, meaning anyone could go down and get their nose in your own business, right? And it can just get really messy.
Well,
really
you hear all
quickly.
the time about celebrities. Prince was one. James Gandolfini, the actor, that sizable wealth that didn't have this stuff set up. It's like no one around them guided them to this. You don't want to be that, because then there's another thing too. Is imagine you do have sizable assets and you don't have these things in place. Do you want all these people coming out of the woodwork? Well, I'm entitled to this or this or this. It's like
he told me back.
He told me he wrote on the back of a In-N-Out napkin, and I still have it. It helps streamline that, and kind of all the riffraff gets removed.
For sure. I like that. All the riffraff is removed, yes. But another thing I think it's important to point out, not only will you help people get organized, but there's no judgment here. There's no right or wrong answer. It's your money. It's your things. You get to decide what you want to have done with it. And then part of your job is coming alongside people and saying, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, have you thought about this? Or if that's what you want to do, great. Let's make sure that it happens the way you want it to, right? I mean, that's the thing. There's no right or wrong answer. It's a very individual thing.
Right. And another thing, on that note, Sean and I did a radio show recently about the same thing. Sometimes we almost need to be a mediator for a husband and wife that aren't sure how to talk to their kids about this, or they're going to go blow it. And maybe you need us there to walk, kind of a intermediary to walk you through it, just to be that non-related person to explain to the kids, here's what it is, here's what your parents are looking to do, here's why it's set up this way, here's what it means, here's what it's helping avoid, or here's what it's helping produce. And it can all start, if this sounds like you and you're afraid to talk to your kids, or I haven't looked at my trust in 20 years, or I never did a trust, I didn't know I need one, call the number below. We can have a conversation. You see the number, you can scan the QR code, and maybe it's more than just legacy planning you're afraid of when you look forward. This is just one aspect. Sean mentioned the financial compass. It's 5 different things. This is one pillar of that, but there's 4 other ones. Maybe those are a concern of yours. Call the number, scan the QR code, set up a time to talk, and we'll see if we can kind of assist you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Scott and Sean. Again, you don't have to go it alone. You don't have to be an expert in any of these things. Your job is to be an expert in you, and then allow the team of Bulman Wealth Group to come alongside you, walk you through it, and help make sure that everything is organized and in order for you and your loved ones. That number to call for your complimentary financial compass review is 888-970-4685. Or if you'd rather take out your smartphone, you can open up the camera app. Just point, click, and scan that QR code there in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and that will take you over to a landing page, ask you a few short, simple questions, and then a member of the team from Bulman Wealth Group will reach out to connect with you to schedule your complimentary meeting that way as well. We'll be back with more on Your Financial Compass right after this.
Successful retirement to me is someone who doesn't have to worry about where their next paycheck's going to come from, where the income's going to come from. Are they going to run out of income? Are they going to run out of money? Are they going to meet their financial goals with respect to maybe they want to leave money to their children? Maybe they want to leave money to a philanthropy or a university.
Being able to wake up and know the day's an open slate and not having to worry about things. Or say someone's going on a trip with family, they're going to the beach, and if the headline says, the market's down again or something, they're not concerned. Bulman Wealth has my back here. We've got a plan in place. My portfolio is set up in a way that that concern is not there.
All the pieces fit together like a puzzle. When that all fits together and you can see the peace of mind that gives families, that is a successful retirement.
When interest rates are low, you might be able to refinance your home, your car, even your credit card. When interest rates go up, it may make sense to refinance your retirement. Higher interest rates could provide income opportunities you may not be aware of. So what works for your portfolio during low interest rates may not work for you when interest rates are high. Find out if a retirement refi could work for you. Call today for your complimentary Refi Your Retirement review.
Welcome back to Your Financial Compass. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, here with both financial advisors, Scott and Sean from Bulman Wealth Group, and a very important conversation we are having today all about legacy planning. We're so glad that you're joining us. And, you know, we mentioned earlier in the show that this isn't always the most fun thing for folks to think about. A lot of times people want to just stick their head in the sand, or you might find this whole process of having an estate plan really overwhelming. There's also that misconception of, well, I don't have enough, so I don't need one. But no, if you have stuff and you love people, you need to have an estate plan in place, right? Mm-hmm. So it affects everybody. I'm curious, though, because obviously for some folks, it might be even hard to get that far down the road. A lot of folks are concerned these days with not outliving their money. They just want to make sure that you have enough money in place to last for the rest of your life. So it's interesting because this legacy conversation is kind of assuming that there's going to be money to pass on. And you said earlier, if we've done our job correctly, there should be things to pass on, right?
Again, you summed it really well in terms of we can actually, by figuring out one problem, we can solve 2 problems. By figuring out if you have a fear of running out of money, if we can put a plan together to show where the income's coming from, what kind of rates of return we need to get in investments, how taxes, inflation play in most instances, or many instances, we find out that there's going to be a lot of money left over, more money than we might have thought, which again leads back into this conversation of, wow, there's going to be X amount of money left. I had no idea. I didn't think there'd be enough for me. So the first step, creating the plan, the legacy, there's no right or wrong answer to legacy. Some people, well, my parents didn't leave me anything. No judgment. You know, if you
some people say I want one with the last check to bounce on.
You just beat me to it. I've heard that before. It's not how I would view it as a father myself, but to each their own. But in many instances, people want to leave money behind to their kids. And so sometimes it's just boiled down, we create a plan, but if we even want to take a step back, all money has a place in 3 buckets the way that we see it, from safety, income, and growth. So let's just look at 2 of the buckets, income, growth. If we have money, if we know where the income's coming from, be it Social Security, pension, real estate, inheritance, what have you, And we solve that to show you how you're not going to run out of money. Well, then money in that growth bucket, which might be investments, what have you, that could be preserved better to leave for legacy. So it's just, we can, by answering one question, we can start the domino effect of all these other problems that it solves. Is you're not going to run out of money. You're probably going to have a lot left over. Now what? How do we leave it in the most efficient way to our kids, or to our charity, or to wherever we want to leave it?
So I was going to say, a lot of people are charitably inclined, and they, want to make sure they're leaving money to charities as well, and that's another course of action that can be taken.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one example, we were working with someone that just shows how interconnected these pillars of our financial compass are. The worrying about income, worrying about even long-term care. What if I need the money for my health care costs? What if, how do I leave money to the next generation? So we were working with a family, and we use life insurance as a way to achieve multiple goals. For example, life insurance can grow over time, create cash value that can be tax-free income source during retirement if they need it. If they need long-term care, it can be used, the death benefit can be used for long-term care insurance, and then they can keep it and own it, and when they pass on, then there's an inheritance that is created that can be passed on to the next generation, income tax-free. So I think that's just a great example of our planning approach that Scott talked about, how interconnected the whole financial plan is, and there are ways we can accomplish all those goals and create a legacy.
Absolutely. Well, and we say this on the show a lot, how you make a decision in one area can affect all the others. And again, there's no judgment. It doesn't matter what you want to do. It matters to you, and it will matter to the team of Bulman Wealth Group. Their job is to say, okay, well, if that's what you want to do, then okay, let's help make that happen. And another piece I would add that shows how interconnected this is creating greater tax efficiency throughout someone's full financial plan, especially if you're looking to pass money on. You want to do it in the most tax efficient manner.
We're always banging the drum about Roth conversions. The more money we can have in a Roth account that's tax-free, not only does that help you, it can also help your kids. Because let's use a scenario. You've got $1 million in a traditional IRA, traditional 401k. If you pass away and you leave that to your kids, say you've got 2 kids, hey, that's a nice gift you're leaving, but with the current rules, those children, they have a 10-year window they need to liquidate that money.
Yes,
so say,
because the stretch IRA provision was eliminated.
Yeah, correct.
Yes.
It's long gone.
Yep.
And say little Johnny or Jane got $500,000. What if they're doing well and they're earning a lot of money? That's just that much more money they have to take out and realize as income. Again, in a way, it's a good problem to have. I'm sure they're not going to complain. But if you can have Roth money and leave that to them, then Uncle Sam already got his cut.
Yeah.
So they're receiving that money tax-free, and they can do whatever they want with it. So it's helping you in the short term in terms of your life, life plans, but it's also helping on legacy of getting the taxes out of the way, not only for you but for future generations.
Right, because what it could do, unfortunately, a lot of times when kids are inheriting that kind of money, they're in their higher working years, which already they're in a higher tax bracket. Now they have an inheritance. That's going to bump them up to even higher tax bracket. Now they have a bigger tax liability. And nothing is more sad than when I think parents are wanting to do the right thing and they're wanting to leave a large sum, but not realizing that what they're passing on is a ticking tax time bomb, if you will.
That's right. And speaking of little Jimmy and Mary,
it was Johnny and Jane, by the way.
Johnny and
but
Jimmy.
they work too.
When we work with a new client, we think family, and we ask the questions: how old are your kids? What are their life experiences? If the family has created some assets and it's clear they're going to be passing some money on, the question is, how ready are the kids to inherit this wealth?
Yep.
That's a huge responsibility. Do they want to be good stewards? Will they make good informed decisions? We play such an important role in educating other family members on financial literacy that's really tied to legacy.
Yeah, for sure. Well, no doubt we've uncovered a lot of things that I'm sure our viewers are going, yes, please help me put this together. Help me facilitate the conversation with my family. Again, that's a huge part of what you do, right?
Yeah, and you're not alone. You're not the only one feeling that way. Sometimes you need a third party to walk you through it. Maybe this isn't even your concern. It's about other things with investments or taxes or what have you. Or maybe it's all of the above. And that's okay too. You can call the number below. You can scan the QR code, and we'll set up a time to talk, to find out these things, find out about your family situation, find out about your legacy plans, find out about your kids, your tax concerns. All these different things work and fall into the full circle that we call the financial compass. So if any of these things are a concern, you can call the number below, you can scan the code, and we can set up a conversation and see if we can give answers to those questions. But it's okay. Don't wait, because you're going to forget about it. As soon as the ad comes up, write the number down, call, and we'll have a talk.
Scott, Sean, thank you so much. You know, I think often a lot of folks spend a lot more time worrying about this when if they would just take the action and know that they have people who are there in their corner to help them walk through it and do it correctly, that would just alleviate so much unnecessary stress and worry and concern. So we invite you, today is the day, pick up the phone, call the number you see on the bottom of your screen for your very own complimentary financial compass review with the team of Bulman Wealth Group. 888-970-4685. Or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code, and that will get you connected as well. We'll be back with more on this important conversation of making sure you have the right legacy plan in place right after this.
After college, I spent 8 years active duty as an Army officer, as a captain in the Army. And I was really driven by this idea of service and serving something bigger than myself. And when I got out of the military, it was an easy transition to financial services as a financial advisor. There was a firm that was looking for military officers who had just gotten out. They had done a study, and the people that served in the military tended to do well in financial services. And once I got into it, I just really fell in love with not only working with clients, but building portfolios, the strategic part. Just like in the military, in a military operation, you're here today and later you want to get to this destination. How are you going to get there safely? Planning all the logistics, the danger areas, planning around those. They just related to each other in a way that just made sense for me. And this feeling of serving clients, serving others that's bigger than myself became kind of my calling, just as serving in the military was my calling.
Back a couple years ago, when interest rates were low, everyone went out and refinanced their home mortgage. Well, now that interest rates have shot up, have you thought about refinancing your old annuity? Contact us at the number below to discuss your options.
Welcome back to Your Financial Compass. We're so glad that you're here with us today. I'm Kristen Oakley here with Sean and Scott, financial advisors from Bulman Wealth Group. We've been talking about the importance of having a legacy plan in place for yourself. You know, unfortunately, a lot of families have been torn apart with the lack of estate planning. You don't want to pass on strife and infighting. You want to pass on a legacy of peace, and that's what you all at Bulman Wealth Group are committed to doing for folks. I know, Sean, you have a great, powerful story that I think wraps a really good bow around this conversation we've been having today. Would you mind sharing that with our viewers?
Sure. We talk a lot about keeping harmony at the holiday table, right? I mean, we've all either lived it, movies have
portrayed it.
Old Uncle Al and his political thoughts again.
You know, the fights at the holiday table. And the holiday table is not to break open a conversation about money, who's going to get what, right? But there is a way during the holiday or when everyone's together to really start building a foundation there. It's not about dollars and cents. It's an opportunity to talk and share values, which really is the lasting legacy, right?
Yes.
Money may not last forever, but values can and really should. So start with the family story. When you are all gathered around, start telling more family stories about grandparents and great-grandparents. You know, we're all immigrants. There was a story of struggle and sacrifice. I was talking to one family, and they had 5 siblings. The older siblings saw the parents and the family, work hard to create the wealth. The younger kids, by the time they were old, the wealth was created and they were living more comfortably. And it was amazing to hear the siblings talk about their realities were so different. The older kids appreciated what the parents did to create the money. The young kids, unfortunately, kind of enjoyed it all. They didn't see the struggle. So building on the family story, the values, the sacrifice, the hard work that it took to create the wealth, creates that foundation. Then when you do start talking about some of the dollars and cents, it means it has more.
They're going to see it in
Yeah.
a different light. It's like
Right.
you watch a movie, like, I'm not sure what I just saw. Maybe then you read the liner notes or whatever to see the meaning behind the different scenes. Like, oh my gosh, I have a different appreciation for it. It's kind of the same.
Yeah.
It's like, gosh, mom and dad did this. Holy cow. I don't want to go waste the money now. I mean,
Right.
understanding the context behind what got you there, as Sean said, can help kind of grease the wheels of having that conversation, puts it in a new context.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be this scary, intimidating thing.
And what have you also shared with me happens in the absence of those conversations? Like, what have folks said to you when they've come in and they're trying to wade through a mess that has been left in their lap?
And even if there wasn't a mess, even if things were semi-put together, there's this yearning and longing that we received this inheritance and we're so grateful for it, but we wish we had known more about the why. Why did we get this? Why did we get it in the way we did? What were my parents' wishes and intentions? And there's ways to do that. There's something called a letter of wishes that someone can write. It's not a legal document, but attorneys and estate planning attorneys and we all view it as a way for the family, to pass on the meaning behind it, and it can be so informal. If you Google letter of wishes, you'll see some examples, some templates, and you'll be amazed by how informal it is. But I think it's a missed opportunity because we think legal documents are rigid and stodgy, and you can't really
Hard to read
put your heart into it.
Yep.
Then you're hearing it in that person's voice.
Right.
Oh, Dad passed away, but I'm hearing his voice reading those words, and it really humanizes the whole. I mean, obviously it's a hard enough
very
process.
powerful, right.
It humanizes it, kind of trims out a lot of that animosity that can be there.
Well, and I think it's important just to remind folks we're not promised tomorrow, you know, and when you're grieving, that is not the time on top of everything else that you want to have to wade through a nightmare or a mess that's been left in your lap or these unanswered questions. It is by far one of the most loving things that you can ever do for those you leave behind is to make sure that your own affairs are in order. So what would you want to say to close out this important conversation for anyone who's like, yeah, I've been kicking that can down the road. I know I need to do it, but I just haven't done it yet.
Don't wait. You already said it, Kristen. Tomorrow's not promised. We all know someone who passed away that shouldn't have. Did they have their things set up? And, you know, it's just, why would you wait? Don't put it off. It's scary. It doesn't have to be. It's not as scary as you think. The conversations aren't as hard as they need to be. And if you need us to kind of walk alongside you, it wouldn't be the first time. So call the number below.
So well said, and it'll be met with so much compassion as well. So if you need help, again, we encourage you to reach out. Thanks so much for being here. We look forward to being back with you next time here on Your Financial Compass.